Hi guys, here we go. We're in Unit 3, Part 2, Day 13 notes. This is technically Part 2 of solving by square roots. So yesterday, or the video previous to this, was Part 1, kind of the introduction, some simpler problems. I gave you 4 steps. We're still going to use those 4 steps. So step 1 was isolate x squared. Step 2 was to take the square root of both sides. Step 3 was you needed that plus or minus symbol. And then step 4 was to simplify it so that it was solved all the way. So we're going to keep doing those steps. So start with the first one. The first thing, again, you want to do is get x squared by itself. So I'm going to have to move some of the other stuff. So I'm going to have to subtract 1 to the other side. So I have 2x squared is now equals to 16. X squared is not alone yet. I still have to get rid of that 2 in the front, so I'm going to divide by 2. So then I have x squared is now equal to 8. So again, that was technically step 1. Now, step 2 is to take the square root of both sides. So then I go ahead and I'll put that square root in there. That's going to get rid of the little 2. That's going to leave me with x equals the square root of 8. Again, that's technically step 2. Step 3 is you need to put in that plus or minus sign. So that is step 3. Then step 4 is to simplify. Kind of see if you could break it down at all. So see if you can do your factor tree and break down the 8. 8 breaks down into 4 times 2. 4 breaks down into 2 times 2. I have a match and I have a leftover. So how I write this is x equals plus or minus. The match comes to the outside. The leftover stays underneath. So x equals plus or minus, positive version and a negative version, 2 root 2. Okay, let's look at the next one. You want to make sure x squared is by itself. Well, actually, this one is set up nice. The first step is already done. So then I'm going to do the next step. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So that part's going to go away, and I'm going to be left with x minus 3 equals the square root of 78. That's, again, technically step 2, and kind of at the same time here, I could put in my plus or minus and that step 3. They kind of go together. So then what I'm going to do next is see if I can simplify this down. So I'm going to see if I can break down the 78. So what two numbers multiply to 78? The first thing that I think of is 39 times 2. Then I break down 39 into 3 times 13. Well, 3 doesn't go any further, 13 doesn't go any further, and 2 doesn't go any further. So actually, I'm stuck in all of those. Those are all leftovers. So that can't break down at all. So what I'm stuck with is the root 78. I cannot, and I tried with the orange factor tree, I cannot break that down anymore. So the only thing I could do now is get x by itself. I'm going to add 3 to the other side. So when I write this, I have x equals 3. That goes on the front. Then the plus or minus, and then the square root of 78. Again, I tried to break down the square root of 78. It just couldn't break down. That's as low as it can go. Number 3. Get x squared, so this yellow part by itself. So that 5 in the front's got to go. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5, and I'm going to have x plus 10, quantity squared, is now equal to 4. Now that this yellow part, see that the yellow part is by itself, now I can take the square root of both sides. So that'll get rid of that. And I'm going to have x plus 10 is by itself, and it now equals the square root of 4. I can also put my plus or minus sign in there. And then this is something you should know. The square root of 4, I've been putting a star next to it. That's a perfect square. You should know that one by heart. You should know, okay, I know that that's a perfect square. I can automatically change that to 2. The square root of 4 is 2. So when I do that, I notice the only thing I have left to do is subtract 10 to the other side. So I have x equals negative 10, then the plus or minus, and then the 2. Notice how there's no imaginary I. There's no square root. There's nothing crazy going on. I can go ahead and do this calculation. So what is negative 10 plus 2? If you went ahead and added those, you would get 8. Well, there's your answer. That wasn't so bad. And then you could do, well, what is negative 10 minus 2 if you did the minus version? If you subtracted them, that's negative 12. Because these are numbers, There's nothing, no imaginary, there's nothing in there with a root. You can go ahead and just add them and subtract them. Okay, number 4. I want to get this, instead of an x, it's a v, but you do the same thing. I want to get this v squared by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 1 to the other side. So I have v squared over 25 is equal to 12. Again, it's not alone yet. You got to get rid of that 25. So if I'm going to get rid of that 25, I'm going to basically, it's kind of like multiplying by the reciprocal. 25 is going to be on the top because look at how that'll cancel on the diagonal. And I'll have v squared is equal, and then when I multiply that, I'm going to get 300. V squared is equal to 300. Okay, now it's by itself, so I can take the square root of both sides, and that will go away. So v, is equal to the square root of 300. You also want to make sure you're not forgetting your plus or minus symbol. So then v is by itself. This is all looking good. You just want to simplify. So let's break down 300. So what two numbers multiply to 300? Right away I think about 30 and 10. And I can break down 30 into, let's do 15 and 2. 15 can break down into 5 and 3. 10 breaks down into 2 times 5. I have a match of 2's, and I have a match of 5's, and I have a leftover 3. So when I go to write my answer here, and I'm running out of space a little bit, but if I try and let's see if I can scoot over. When I write my answer, I have v equals the plus or minus symbol. The match 2 comes to the outside, and the match 5 comes to the outside. The leftover 3 stays under. So when I do this, make sure you multiply the 2 times 5 to give you a 10 on the outside, and the 3 would stay under. And that would be my final answer, plus or minus a positive version and a negative version. Okay, let's go back over here. We got 2 more to go. Number 5. You want to get this x squared term, that parenthesis part, by itself. So I'm going to have to get rid of this fraction, the 1/3. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. 3 over 1. There we go. That'll get rid of that fraction. I have x plus 5, quantity squared, is now equal to 21. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that exponent of 2 by square rooting both sides, and I'm going to put my plus or minus symbol in there. So let me fix this up, make this look better. I have x plus 5 equals plus or minus square root of 21. Okay, kind of 2 things to look at. I want to see if I can simplify this radical, so let's see if I can branch this off. What 2 numbers multiply to 21? I think a 7 times 3. But then I'm stuck at the 7 and I'm stuck at the 3. So I can't do anything more with that. I tried to break it down, but that radical is as low as I can go. So actually the only thing I could do here is move this 5 by subtracting it to the other side. So I'm going to have x equals the negative 5, then the plus or minus, and then the square root of 21. Again, it's not like I didn't try to simplify that, I just couldn't. So that's as low as I can go. All right, last one for this day. Let's go ahead and get this x minus 1 quantity, that part by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 to the other side. So I have 5 times x minus 1 squared is now equal to 50. Okay, again, that yellow x minus 1, that term right there, or that factor right there, is not by itself. So let's go ahead and get rid of the 5 in the front by dividing by 5. So I have x minus 1 quantity squared is now equal to 10. Okay, so that's now equal to 10, and now I can go ahead and square root both sides. So I have x minus 1, no parentheses there anymore, and it now equals the square root of 10. And you can also, if you want to do this at the same time, you can also put your plus or minus symbol. Okay, then you want to make sure you're checking, just like the other one, you're checking to see if you can break down the square root of 10. So what numbers multiply to 10? 5 times 2 comes to my mind. 5 doesn't break down anymore, so I'm stuck. 2 doesn't break down anymore, so I'm stuck. So Again, that's as low as I can go for that one. So the only thing I see that I can do here is I can add this 1 to the other side of the problem. So I can write my final answer as x equals 1, then the plus or minus, then the root 10. And just like the previous problem, I tried to simplify, it just didn't simplify. So that's as low as I can go.